You're about to do something important. Speak in public. Have that difficult conversation. Start the project you've been putting off for months. And then, suddenly, it happens. An icy chill runs down your spine. The air seems to get thick, and a voice in your head. A voice that sounds dangerously like your own. But you know it's not. Whispers, "You're not good enough. You're going to fail. Who do you think you are to even try this?" Freeze. Your body, suddenly, no longer obeys you. It's as if someone else has taken control of your nervous system, forcing you to retreat, to hide, to be silent. This someone else, it has a name. The Swiss psychologist Carl Jung, one of the greatest explorers of the human soul, called this force an autonomous complex. Think about that. A piece of our own psyche that has broken away, that has taken on a life of its own. It's usually born from an old wound, a moment of pain or shame that was never fully processed. And today it acts like a ghost in the machine, a saboteur that lives inside of us. Society, the culture of toxic positivity, and superficial self-help give us a clear order. Fight this ghost. Ignore it. Suppress it. Eliminate it. But what if this fight, what if this internal war is the real cause of our suffering? And what if I told you that this very force that sabotages you, that paralyzes you, that whispers your greatest insecurities in your ear, is in fact the raw material for your greatest superpower, a raw energy waiting to be transformed? By the end of this video, you will understand how your deepest wound, the one you try hardest to hide, holds your true gift. And more important, you'll understand how to stop fighting against yourself, to finally become whole. First, we need to disarm the word complex. In day-to-day life, we use it as an insult, a label. So-and-so is full of complexes. But in Jung's depth psychology, the term is technical, precise, and liberate. A complex is not a weakness or a character flaw. Imagine your psyche is a solar system. At the center is your ego, the I you present to the world, the conscious sun. But orbiting this sun are other celestial bodies, miniature planets. Each of these planets is a complex. It's a cluster of memories, ideas, intense emotions, all revolving around a nucleus, a miniature sun. And that nucleus is almost always an archetypal wound, the wound of abandonment, of rejection, of humiliation, of inadequacy. This little planet has its own gravitational pull. It stays there, quiet in its orbit most of the time, in the darkness of your unconscious. But then, something happens in the present. A person says a specific phrase. A look judges you in a certain way. You face a situation that rhymes with that original wound, and it's as if your consciousness is violently pulled into that planet's orbit. You lose control. The emotional reaction is instant, automatic, and almost always disproportionate to the actual situation. That feeling of panic before a presentation isn't about the presentation. It's the gravity of your inadequacy complex pulling you in. That burst of anger over a silly criticism isn't about the criticism. It's the gravity of your humiliation complex. You are no longer in command. The complex is. It has taken over, and the feeling is one of being possessed by a force you don't understand and can't control. The first step to freedom is exactly this. To look at this experience and say, so that's what happens to me. It's not that I'm broken. It's a mechanism. Jung went even deeper. He called them autonomous complexes. Autonomous because, as I said, they operate outside the ego's control. They have their own intentions, their own logic, almost like fragmented personalities within us. But here comes the most surprising part. Jung didn't just see complexes as pathologies to be cured. He said they are the architects of all our dreams and destinies. Think about it. The same energy that sabotages you is the energy that, if understood, builds your destiny. The complex is not an error in the system. It is a fundamental part of your psychic architecture. And understanding this validates your pain. It validates your struggle. You are not fighting an imaginary enemy. You are dealing with a real force. A force that, for now, acts like an enemy, but which longs for integration. And this leads us directly to the heart of the problem, to the paradox that keeps us trapped. If the complex is such a powerful force, our instinctive reaction is to declare war. We want to exorcise it, to rip it out of us like a tumor. We spend years in therapies that promise to eliminate anxiety, in practices that seek to destroy the negative ego. But this fight, this civil war within our own soul, is a trap. It's a war that cannot be won, for the simple reason that the enemy is also you. What you resist persists. By fighting the complex, you feed it. Every drop of energy you spend trying to suppress a thought, deny an emotion, or fight an impulse is like pouring gasoline on a fire. You are, in fact, giving it exactly what it wants: your attention, your energy, your focus. Here, we need another of Jung's maps, perhaps his most famous of all, the concept of the shadow. The shadow is our other side, the basement of our psyche where we throw everything we consider unacceptable about ourselves. Our anger, our envy, our vulnerability, our fears. The autonomous complex is one of the main inhabitants of this shadow. By trying to eliminate it, we are in practice trying to amputate a part of ourselves. It's as if the left hand declared war on the right. The result isn't victory. It's the mutilation of the whole. This constant battle consumes an absurd amount of vital energy. That's why we feel so exhausted, so drained, even when we've done nothing all day. Keeping parts of ourselves locked in the basement requires a constant Herculean effort. And the worst part is that it doesn't. The energy of the shadow doesn't disappear when it's repressed. It rots, becomes toxic, and seeks other outlets, like a dammed river that now leaks from all sides. It manifests as projection, when we start seeing in others the flaws we don't admit in ourselves. It leaks out as unintended actions, those moments when we say or do the exact opposite of what we meant. And of course, it manifests as self-sabotage, where the complex, furious at being ignored, takes control at the most crucial moments to prove it's still there. Do you see the futility of this? Your strategy to get rid of the problem is what makes the problem stronger. And this realization is frustrating, I know. But it's a constructive frustration because it forces us to abandon the battlefield and look for a completely different path. This is where we turn to the philosopher Friedrich Nietzsche, who gave us that famous and widely misunderstood quote, "That which does not kill me makes me stronger." This is not an invitation to passively endure suffering. It is a call to courage. Strength doesn't come from defeating the darkness, but from having the courage to look at it, to go down into the basement, turn on a light, and start talking to the ghosts that live there. Strength comes from integration. This is where the journey changes direction. We stop looking at our wound as a flaw in the design, and start asking ourselves, what if it's actually a map? What if the pain isn't a sign that we're broken, but a guide pointing to where our greatest potential for growth lies? To understand this, we need to turn to the timeless wisdom of Greek myths, specifically the story of Chiron. Chiron was a centaur, but unlike others of his kind who were wild and violent, he was the embodiment of wisdom, gentleness, and knowledge. He was the master who trained the greatest heroes of Greek mythology, Hercules, Achilles, Jason. He taught them medicine, music, ethics, the art of war, and healing. Chiron was, without a doubt, the greatest healer in all of Greece, but he carried a tragic paradox. During a battle, he was accidentally wounded by an arrow poisoned with the blood of the Hydra, a poison for which there was no cure. And so, the greatest of all healers was condemned to live with an incurable wound, a pain that would be with him forever. It is precisely at this point, in the heart of his tragedy, that we find the secret. Why did Chiron become the world's greatest healer? It wasn't in spite of his wound, but because of it. Since he could not heal himself, he was forced to learn everything there was to know about every herb, every poison, every antidote. His own pain turned him into the foremost expert on easing the pain of others. His wound endowed him with a compassion and empathy he never would have achieved if he were a perfect and invulnerable being. The wound was not his weakness. It was the source of his gift. The wound became his purpose. And this is the archetype of the wounded healer, a profound truth that echoes in each of us. Look at your own life, or the lives of the people you admire most. The person who overcame crippling social anxiety is the one who best knows how to create safe and welcoming spaces for others. The artist who felt the abyss of existential emptiness is the one who can create a work that touches the soul and makes us feel less alone. The entrepreneur who went bankrupt and rose again is the one who can best guide others through the fear of failure. This connects us directly to the logotherapy of Viktor Frankl, the psychiatrist who survived the concentration camps. Frankl taught us the most liberating lesson of all. We cannot choose our wounds. We cannot choose the circumstances imposed upon us. But we have the ultimate and inalienable freedom to choose the meaning we give to them. It is the act of transforming suffering into purpose, trauma into service, the wound into wisdom. Your complex, born from that old pain, is not a life sentence. It is an invitation to your own heroic journey. So, how to begin? How do you leave the battlefield and become an alchemist of the soul? The process is not about elimination, but about integration. And it begins with 3 practical steps, a new way of relating to this inner force. The first step is, map the territory. Instead of fighting, become a curious observer, a cartographer of your own psyche. When the complex is activated, when that wave of ice or fire takes over, stop for a moment. Don't judge. Don't resist. Just observe. What triggered it? Was it a word? A tone of voice? A specific situation? What is the core emotion you feel? Is it fear? Shame? Anger? Write it down. Like a scientist collecting data, start mapping the patterns of your inner saboteur. Without judgment, just map. The simple act of conscious observation already diminishes the complex's gravitational pull. The second step is initiate the dialogue. This might seem strange at first, but it's one of the most powerful techniques in depth psychology. Personify the complex. Give it a name or an image. It could be a scared child, a harsh critic, a dark monster. And then, through journal writing or active imagination, talk to it. Ask this part of you direct, what do you really want? What are you trying to protect me from? At first, there might be silence or hostile reply, but if you insist with genuine curiosity, the truth will eventually emerge. And the answer is almost always the same. The complex is a part of you that is frozen in time, desperately trying to protect you from that original pain. Its strategy is distorted, childish, and today it causes you more harm than good. But its intention, at its root, was protection. And finally, the third step, transmute the energy. The energy trapped in the complex is pure power. It's nuclear fuel. Once you understand its origin and protective intention, you can begin to negotiate and consciously channel that energy. The energy of anger, which once manifested in destructive outbursts, can be transmuted into the fuel for discipline, for setting healthy boundaries, for fighting for a just cause. The energy of fear, which once paralyzed you, can become prudence, careful planning, the ability to anticipate risks. The energy of neediness, which once made you beg for affection, can transform into an immense capacity for empathetic connection, for understanding the pain of others, and for building true relationships. You don't destroy the energy, you redirect it. Remember the promise I made at the beginning? About how the force that sabotages you becomes your greatest superpower? The answer is here. The transformation happens the moment you stop fighting and start listening. The complex is not an enemy to be defeated in a battle of wills. It is a wounded messenger, carrying a precious map of the forgotten territories of your soul. And your wound, the one you most fear and hide, does not point to your weakness. It points directly to your gift. It is the mark that uniquely qualifies you to offer the world the wisdom that only you could have learned. If this journey of transformation and depth resonated with you, and if you believe this is the path to a more authentic life, subscribe to the channel, turn on notifications, and leave a like so this message can reach more people who are fighting this lonely war. And now, I'd like to hear from you. In the comments, share. What wound are you learning to see not as a weakness, but as a future source of power?